Good evening. My name is Jeannie Hamilton. I'm the city planner here for the city of Monte Sereno, and I'd like to welcome you all to our first community forum for the Objective Design Standards project recently undertaken by the city. To help us in this effort, we have engaged the services of a planning consulting firm, M Group, and we have three of their people with us tonight who will be really doing all the work. If I can introduce them, Jeff Bradley, one of the principals of M Group. We also have Tom Ford, who is the project manager, as well as Aaron Tao, who is assisting Tom and Jeff in this effort. We are using the Zoom client for this meeting. The ability to ask questions and provide input will be done through the chat function at the bottom of your screen. And then if you do the raised hand, I'm sorry, we're using the raise hand function to acknowledge people who want to speak, and then we'll enable you to speak. The chat function is really just for any issues you may be having, like if you can't hear or something like that. At that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jeff to do an introduction and take it away.
Thanks, Jeannie. Appreciate this opportunity. My name is Jeff Bradley. As Jeannie said, I'm the one of the founding principals of a local firm named Metropolitan Planning Group. We're celebrating our 15-year anniversary this year. And we specialize in city planning, specifically within the Bay Area. So we only work for public sector clients in the San Francisco Bay Area on projects such as this, as well as other types of city planning efforts. Our headquarters is in Campbell, so close by. We've done a lot of work over the years for Monte Sereno, as well as Los Gatos and Saratoga. So we're very familiar with the area. We're not coming in as outsiders without a clear understanding of what this area is like. And with that, I will hand it over to Tom Ford to talk in more detail specifically about the Objective Design Standards effort currently underway. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. So is my screen being shared right now? Oh, okay,
Yep.
good.
Yes.
Okay. So as Jeff mentioned, there's a few of us on here on this project. So there's me, Jeff just spoke, there's Aaron, and there's Demir. So the four of us are putting together these objective standards. We've already gotten started with some looking around, understanding the community, understanding some of your regulatory documents. And then I believe it was in May, we had a meeting with your site and architecture committee. So tonight, we've already done the introductions. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of why this is happening. What is an objective design standard? And for those of you that were able to attend the site and architecture meeting, you probably already know a little bit about this. But just give an overview of where this came from in terms of state regulation that started this issue, and then how different communities are responding. Then we'll take a little time to look at what your existing regulatory documents are in Monte Sereno that can control residential development and what it looks like. With that, then we'll start to talk about some preliminary design topics because after this meeting, we'll continue to receive comments from any community member that wants to present them to us, either straight to our email or through the project website. And I'll make sure there's the project website down at the bottom. You can see the address. And we've already gotten up to this afternoon. We have 14 different community members that have given us some ideas and responded to a survey that we have there. So once we collect all that data and finish today's meeting, our team is going to go away and start to develop the objective design standards that we want to bring back in draft form. So I want to start to talk about in number 4 there, some of the ways that that might lay out. Then we'll talk about the timeline, next steps, and then we hopefully the bulk of our time tonight will be in the public comment period to allow you folks tuning in today to provide some ideas that you think are particularly important for us to be paying attention to. So we have a couple of questions interlaced throughout the presentation tonight. This is a map. This isn't our idea. This is your general plan map of neighborhoods. So we're going to ask you to submit what neighborhood you live in. And we have, you can either scan the QR code there, or you can go to slido.com and enter the number there, 549-822, and start to tell us which neighborhood you belong to, you live in, because we think it might just be a little interesting for us to know. And then you can also see which of your community members or neighbors are attending tonight. So we'll leave this up for a little while and allow you to access it.
Tom and Jeannie, not to throw you a curveball, but given we only have 7 attendees from the public, would it be possible for people to give a brief introduction of themselves so we know we could tailor our presentation a little bit to who we have here with us?
I think that's a great idea. I can't see that number, so I didn't see that. Are you okay with that, Jeannie?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
So I guess what we should probably do is allow people to raise their hand, and then they.
Rowena Turner was the first with the hand raised.
Okay.
You could call on her.
Rowena? I think
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a resident of Monte Sereno, and I'm also part of an ad hoc committee for this project. I have Council Member Lawler with me, and she will be speaking later. But I wanted to speak for myself here as a resident of Monte Sereno. I have seen that our legislators in Sacramento have been gradually restricting a city's ability to control its own zoning. That is, the city has lost local control. When building or remodeling projects that come before the city, decisions are made based on the city's objective standards. And that's why your presentation today and the work that you're doing is critical to Monte Sereno. Objective standards provide specificity to what in the past has been generally guidelines. Objective standards remove any ambiguity or subjective judgment as to whether a project is consistent with community standards. So cities all over California are going through this exercise of converting their guidelines into objective standards, and Monte Sereno is no different. As a community, we want to preserve the unique character of this community where it blends with the natural environment and the neighborhood. We want to be respectful of our neighbors and the rural characteristics of Monte Sereno. One way is for all of us to provide our input tonight in this process. Our objective standards have to be objective, not subjective. Our input is necessary so we can achieve the goals that we have. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Rowena, that was wonderful. I think you basically captured most of our presentation tonight, and I think you made really great points. And hopefully we won't bore people when we actually give the presentation, but we're going to echo a lot of the comments that you just made. Who's next, Jeff? Is there another hand raised?
There was a hand raised, but then it went away. Oh, Liz Lawler has her hand up there.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Liz Lawler. I'm a resident and also council member. I live in the Daves neighborhood. We're on an R18 lot, and our objective design guidelines are very important to me so as to preserve what it is we love about our community, the privacy, our safety, the rural character, as well as I think it's really important that somehow we can incorporate architectural integrity in our home designs to make sure that there is continuity and flow and high quality work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, council member. Are there any more hands raised, Jeff?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, so it looks like we have 4.
Dave Kyson's calling in from a phone, so they may not be able to raise a hand.
He's a consultant with the city helping
Oh,
us.
he's IT. He's IT.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, correct.
Okay.
Um,
No other volunteers. We'd have to start calling on people.
Okay, no, I think so. Basically, we only have 4 participants in this poll, but we see that there's 4 neighborhoods represented by 4 participants tonight. And so I think we'll go ahead and close this and move on. So I'm going to start. So as I said, I think Rowena put out a lot of great information about what we want to talk about. One of the laws that came out of the state, and one of the first laws that started raising this issue of objective standards was SB 35. And this here on the screen right now is a quote directly from SB 35. It says, what is an objective standard? And it basically means that, as you can see on the screen, it involves no personal or subjective judgment. So anything when a development, anything that is adopted as a standard at the time that a development application is made, that's the only criteria that can be used for certain projects. And I'll get into which projects apply to this, but only certain projects, only certain standards that can be objectively measured will be used. So as I said, there's a lot of different laws that have been coming down since SB 35. But one of the things that SB 35 does is it allows this streamlining process. And it takes the process away from your typical process that goes to the Site and Architecture Committee and the City Council and judges projects by what the objective standards are. And on the left of the screen, you can see that we have Assembly Bill 68 and 881, which have been become law in the last couple of years that specifically address accessory dwelling units. And so there's a lot of places where, there's a lot of reasons why an accessory dwelling unit is basically taken through the ministerial process, not only taken through a ministerial process, but within a 60-day time limit. So again, the only things that the staff can apply when judging the project are objective standards or standards in the zoning ordinance. So one of the people that commented on the website very early on the objective standards, design standards, montesereno.org site, said, well, the city shouldn't be making a lot of regulations because the city should just allow people to develop what they want. I would take a different approach. I think, as Rowena pointed out, a lot of this legislation is coming down from the state. So what the objective standards do is it allows individual communities to develop standards that are really reflective of what the community's vision is for itself. And so many communities, including you, Monte Sereno, have design guidelines. But as we'll see a little bit later in the presentation, many of the issues that are discussed in the guidelines are very subjective. My definition of rural might be very different than Jeff's or Aaron's. And so you get into problems when you try to judge things on with subjective reasoning. So the objective standards have to provide metrics or other ways of really getting to an objective way of looking at development control. As I said, accessory dwelling units are allowed that ministerial process now based on state regulation. So here is another reason for Monte Sereno going beyond what you've already done in updating your ADU ordinance to reflect changes that the state made starting January 1st, 2020. So for instance, the top 3 bullet points are in your zoning code, where you address, you know, some of the regulatory control over an ADU. And then your zoning code also has design standards. So this is pretty objective here. Materials shall be identical to the primary dwelling. The roof form and pitch shall match the primary dwelling. So those are pieces that already exist in your design standards for the ADUs. And as you can see, it would be very easy to measure those objectively. What are the materials on the main dwelling? Oh, it's board and bat siding with you know, aluminum trim. Well, therefore, then that's what you've now standardized what the ADU would have to be. What is the roof form and pitch? That's very easily measured on an existing primary dwelling, and then the ADU would have to match that according to these design standards. The design standards that you already have. So again, just to remind you, the ministerial review on the left is what the city staff would do when a project comes in, and the city staff can't use any subjective judgment. They can only review a project according to what the adopted objective design standards are. Now, there are projects that will continue to go through the normal discretionary review process, as you see on the right side. That's the typical way that you've been reviewing most, if not all, of your residential development proposals recently. So it goes through the Site and Architecture Committee, it goes through the City Council, and those bodies have the ability to negotiate, if you will, with the applicant changes or potential edits or changes to the design. That will no longer be allowed when a project it qualifies to be reviewed in a ministerial way. So what are the eligible projects? As I said, all accessory dwelling units are allowed. New development where there's a single family home and it has an accessory dwelling unit being built at the same time, that can apply. And beyond those 2 typologies, there's multifamily housing. So multifamily housing that has a minimum of 2 projects and meets the affordability requirements that the state puts out, like in SB 330, SB 35, and other state laws. Those projects can come to the city, say, we meet these requirements, we'd like to do a streamlined process, and then the only thing that can apply to them are the objective standards. So that's the process we've been kicking off this month and last month, and we'll start really working more on this after tonight's meeting. So again, local control over the appearance of projects will not be reviewed by the Site and Architecture Commission. And so that's why, to the degree, as the earlier audience members commented, the degree that the objective standards can achieve what the community members want as ways of enacting their vision, implementing their vision for themselves, for yourselves, the better you'll be. And that will ensure that streamlined projects include those design considerations, those ones that would have ordinarily been negotiated through a review process. So what we're doing through this project is in the left column. We're developing objective standards. And for those of you that don't know, you already have a document, a design guideline document that's filled with different ideas about residential development. But as you'll see when you go through that document, it's highly subjective. And so there's a lot of material in there that might be a great idea, but if that's something you community members want us to pursue, then we need to figure out, is it possible to make that objective, and how do we do that? So here's an example that we've worked on from another jurisdiction. We we've already developed some objective design standards that were adopted by the Lafayette City Council over in the East Bay. So for instance, and what we were responding to was an existing adopted design guideline document. So there was a design guideline in there. Well, there's many, but I'm just showing you one tonight. The step back on the second or third stories with enough dimension to allow for actual uses and related amenities. Well, again, Aaron's idea of enough dimension might be different than mine. So that's very subjective. Aaron's idea of what related amenities are might be different than mine. So how do we turn that guideline into an objective standard? And this is what we did in this case. And again, the photo is very subjective. It doesn't give you anything that's objectively measured unless you were to go in there and actually measure, for instance, the step back that the building makes between the first and the second floor. So we wrote the objective standard to achieve what we felt the design guideline was putting forth. And so we actually gave measurable amounts to when we say the second or third story should have less dimension, or it should provide dimension for other uses. How do we do that? And so we actually we prescribed the amount that the building mass, the building floor area would have to change between the first and second floor, as well as the second and third floor. So again, it's an objective, easily measured thing. You take your building floor plan into the city for approval, and the staff person can easily measure the difference between the floor plates and understand if you've met this standard. So what I'm going to do now, I'm bringing this slide back that just basically in a nutshell describes what an objective standard is. And I want to pause here and see, we have a period later in the show where we want people to give comments about design ideas. But here, we just want to pause and make sure everybody's on board with what an objective standard is, what it is not, and what it's going to help the city achieve. So if you have a question just about that, again, we'll get into design issues later, but if you have a question just about that, I'd like to get that covered before we proceed. So raise your hand, and if you're still a little unclear about the difference between a standard and a subjective guideline, let's let you ask and we'll try to clarify. Any questions? Is that a no? I can't see the raised hand feature.
Tom, there's no raised hands at this time.
Well, I must have done a good job. No, good, I'm glad. But like I said, I think Rowena had it, she nailed it. So I think that's good. I think there's a good understanding of what we're trying to do here. So let's go ahead and move on then and talk about what the city currently uses to look at the design of new development that's coming in. So you have your subdivision ordinance, which is pretty objective. Well, almost everything that's in there, it's like it's part of the zoning ordinance. So it's pretty, it states out things pretty clearly. Then you have the design guidelines, which I mentioned before, are very subjective. And if you haven't had a chance to look at those recently, please do soon after tonight's meeting. And if something in that document strikes you that we don't get to tonight, please let us know via the website. Then you also have your zoning code, and that has a series of development standards in it. Things such as, minimum setbacks and maximum lot coverage that a building can have. As I said earlier, you've updated your ADU ordinance to be in compliance with the January 1st, 2020 state mandate. So that's there, and that has some development standards that I pointed out earlier. And then you've recently made changes to your fence ordinance that are pretty clear, pretty objective, and well, there's one thing, that last bullet, you can't, it can't go to the Site and Architecture Commission. So an applicant is only required to meet what is specified. So they would meet, they would have to, well, I'm not sure. I think this is capped at 7 feet, but they would still be capped at 7 feet, but there wouldn't be a situation in which they would go to the Site and Architecture Commission, because if they qualify for ministerial review, that's not part of their development review process. So the guidelines, as you'll see if you look through your document, they're intended to provide flexibility for building designers and also for the owners and people who are, either developing or remodeling their home. And the guidelines are specifically written to conform to the vision and goals that community members have developed for yourselves. These are the goals in your design guideline document. And as you'll see, these are very, very subjective. That doesn't mean that you can't figure out a way to write an objective standard that talks about harmonious balance. It's probably possible, but all of these 6 statements, first of all, they're high-level goals, but they're also very subjective. Again, my understanding of suburban and semi-rural could be very different from you or one of your neighbors. So these are great goals, and they tell us a lot about what you want to be and what your design guideline document is trying to achieve, but they're not objective. So that's one of the things we need to get into this summer as we write the draft of your objective standards. Here's a page from your existing design guidelines. And again, prominent and highly visible, I might define that very differently than you might. Careful design of a roof, reduce the appearance of bulk and mass. Different people are going to interpret that different ways, and therefore it would flunk the state's definition of what an objective standard needs to achieve. It doesn't mean that we can't write objective standards that control either of these issues, but as these are written right now, they're simply subjective design guidelines, and they wouldn't pass as objective standards. There's nothing objective in the text, as good as it might be. So the next section of our process, and this is where I really hope you can contribute to after you see how we sort of outline where we think we're going and how we think we're going to develop the document. We've taken the outline of your design guideline document and looked at it and think, well, maybe there's a way we can start to develop the standards using these same categories. So neighborhood compatibility, what can we do if that's important to the community? What can we do to objectify things that can be required of new development so that it starts to meet a standard of neighborhood compatibility? Same for being on the site, and there's different sites. Some of your sites are very flat, some of your sites are very hilly, so they have different issues, and they might require different standards. Physical design components such as massing, facade, detailing, exterior lighting on the building, exterior lighting in the landscape, architectural components that enhance a facade or such, and then landscaping. There's a lot that could be said about landscaping, and based on the comments we've been seeing coming in on the design standards montesereno.org site, a lot of people have been, well, there's only been 14 commenters, but the issue of landscape has come up a lot. So I'm going to let my colleague Erin talk a little bit about what we've heard on the website, and then also she's going to run a couple of more questions that we hope you participants can help us with. So Erin.
Thanks, Tom. So yeah, exactly what Tom was talking about earlier is we've had our website, it's been live for a couple months now, and we have a poll up there where we were asking the public, trying to get some responses on what sort of physical characteristics people really like about Monte Sereno and what they would like to see in the future, what they'd like to see preserved. And like Tom said, a big theme that came up a lot was landscaping. People are very passionate about keeping a lot of trees and greenery. They like the expansiveness of lots and how the city kind of has a more rural, spread out feel, which is a little bit different than some of the surrounding South Bay cities. Another thing that came up was liking the high quality and varied architectural details that a lot of the houses have. And so we heard a little from the community, and we'd like to hear more from all of you tonight. So we have another poll coming up where we want to hear from you about what are some of the primary concerns you have about new development in the city. And when we're talking about new development, it's not just, you know, brand new buildings, brand new houses coming up, but also, you know, renovations to existing buildings, and then also the construction of new ADUs, which might be a bigger thing that might be happening in the city. And so we have a couple options for you over here. Maybe you're concerned about the scale and massing of new development, or building setbacks and frontages, architectural design features of some of the new development. I think this was mentioned earlier too, was privacy concerns of properties adjacent to new development. So this is really about protecting your neighbors and making sure that new construction isn't impeding, I guess, into their privacy. We have quality and size of landscape materials. And then if you have another concern that hasn't been captured by these previous options, we'll have another poll question after this, which we'll invite you to leave your comments in and maybe talk a little about what some of your other concerns are. And also keep in mind, you can select multiple answers or all of them if you want. And with that, I'm going to ask Tom to start the poll.
Okay, and then for those of you that were on the Slido website, hopefully you left it open and you can go there. Or if you're one of the people that's doing this by their phone, by your phone, you can go to the QR code and get access to this. Vote. That's great. I liked how those just jumped. And as Aaron pointed out, our next question for participation with all of you is a sort of a word mash. And if we haven't addressed something in these issues that we're putting here, for instance, 20% of you are expressing other concerns, hopefully you can either drop that word into the next question, the word cloud that we have next, or certainly when we get to the community discussion, please bring it up. Okay, 6 participants so far. 7. It's interesting how it changes when just one answer comes in and shifts the divisions.
So right now it looks like, I think I got cut off on the slide here, but right now the top concern is, oh, here we go. Yep, privacy concerns of adjacent properties. That's good.
Oh, that's interesting. That's good. The night that we attended the Site and Architecture Commission, there was a project in Monte Sereno that the commission spent quite a bit of time talking about. It was, I believe it was an addition to a second floor on one property. And we listened to a lot of discussion between the commissioners, but also the neighbors of the development. Okay, so why don't we give it about 5 more seconds and I'll move on. So again, I'm really interested in this because I saw the word landscape a lot on the comments that were submitted to the poll that we put on the website. And here it's represented, but it's a little bit different than what we were seeing before. The biggest words I saw in the what we've seen so far from community members submitting on the website is rural and landscape. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Now, again, this is a kind of a word cloud. And for those of you who haven't done one of these, basically all you need to do is type in your word and this program will take care of arranging it around And again, this is a good opportunity. If we missed something on the previous slide, like what's important, and we didn't give something that is the most important thing to you, you might put that here, or maybe there's something else that you want to put here. And so as you type in a word or two, I think we have a 50-character limit on what you would actually type. But as you type in something that's important to you, this program will start to assemble it.
Also keep in mind, you can add multiple topics. So you can enter more than one response to this one.
Yeah, I believe Aaron and I discussed this earlier when we sort of did a dry rehearsal. If someone puts in multiple answers, the number up at the top doesn't change, correct? But their answer is added. Is that right, Aaron?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So add something if you feel like it. And the program, had these two submittals been more similar, the program would have combined them, but they were different enough that they didn't. So it looks like we have 16 people on the call right now, but I assume some of those are us. And we've got 4 submittals. Why don't we give this another 30 seconds, half a minute, and then we're almost to the end of our presentation, and then we want to turn it over to you, the community, to discuss what's important to you, or flesh out some of these issues that are coming up either in this word cloud or some of the other questions that we've asked tonight. Okay, so I'll move on. So just wrapping up, here we are tonight. We're just doing community forum number 1. So after this meeting, we're going to go away. Although you might see us in your town taking pictures or looking at different pieces of development that you point out to us. Some of those sites have come up on the website, the submittals. And then we'll be back in the fall with some draft standards, and we'll have a city council study session where we look at those. And then we'll go away. We'll make amendments to that draft document and bring it back first to the Site and Architecture Commission. We'll meet with them a second time. As I said, we met with them very early in the project. And then after we've had a chance to get their input and feedback, we'll probably take that, we will take that same document, and what it'll probably be is the same document, but we'll have a very detailed memorandum that lists recommendations that the Site and Architecture Commission might want to make to those objective standards, and we'll take those 2 documents to the council for what we hope will be an adoption hearing, but will certainly allow the council to consider it and provide any further direction to hopefully get an adopted document soon. Hopefully this year. Our intention is to have this project be completed in the calendar year. So as we've been mentioned a few times tonight, the project website is live. Feel free to go in there and drop in a comment. There's, like I said, a survey there that you can respond to if you haven't already. You can also submit just a comment, because hopefully we've sparked some ways. Well, we've done something here tonight that might spark ideas in you later. So please, just because it's not tonight, if it's tomorrow or next Sunday, please just submit it to the website. As I said earlier, we're going to start developing the documentation that we need to take forth to the city for adoption. And then we'll have that study session after we're all back from summer break. There's the website address again. And I'm going to go past this for a second. So just, again, if like next week, if you don't feel like putting something on the website, feel free to send me an email with some idea you might have, or you can send it to cityplanner@cityofmontesereno.org. But right now, I'm going to leave this up just because it was a good slide to have up, that we can have in the background as we have a community discussion. So I'll ask you to raise your hand if you'd like to say something more. And just because this slide is up, if there's some picture that we showed earlier in the presentation and you'd like me to go back and look at that, we can bring that back up. But right now, I'm encouraging you to join the discussion, start the discussion, and give us some ideas. Thank you.
So Tom, we have 3 hands up, Jennifer Cratch, Rowena Turner, and Susan NG.
Okay. So Jennifer, can you speak or be allowed to speak?
Hi, yes, my name is Jennifer Kroc. I have been on the Site and Architecture Commission, and I think this is a really great endeavor because, yeah, there's a lot of contention on what the guidelines could be. My question is, who was notified about this? Because a lot of my friends in Monte Sereno, when I told them about this, they said, "What? What's going on? I didn't know there was a consultant, and I didn't know there was a formal effort to solidify design guidelines." Who has been like, I don't know, what email list did you use?
This is Jeannie Hamilton, the planner. I can answer that. We have used a few different efforts available to us. The city's webpage, we have the announcement on the stream as to what's new, which also includes a link to it. We have a quick link. We did, again, use our eBlast system. So anybody who's subscribed to the City of Monte Sereno for updated information was included on that. We've also posted it on the city's Facebook page and Instagram page. So we didn't do a sheet mailing to every single property, but we used every other available option that the city uses to inform the public.
Okay, so it's whoever wanted to be.
Exactly.
Okay, so whoever opted in. That's great.
Yes, that's correct.
I just wanted to know. I've been opted in for so long that I just assume everyone's opted in, but I guess not. Thank you. And I'm really glad this is going on because I think it'll streamline the process for the applicants as well as for the Site and Architecture Commission. Thank you.
So if I can just add something, Jennifer, what you could do also is let your friends and neighbors who are interested know of those sources that Jeannie just spoke of. And then this meeting that we're doing tonight, as with the Site and Architecture Committee meeting that we had, Commission meeting that we had May 12th, those are recorded. And so, somebody who didn't have the chance to know about tonight's meeting, they can still at least see it, and then they can submit their own original idea that doesn't have anything to do with tonight. If they've got an idea that we're not talking about, they can submit that on the website and they can watch this tonight's presentation.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure. So next, Rowena.
Oh, I would like to respectfully give the floor to Susan Ng, our resident, before council members speak. We'll speak last.
Okay, Susan, how about you? Would you like to speak?
Hello,
Hi.
can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Susan. So I am excited about this because I think it really takes away human errors and judgment. and it makes it clearer of like, streamline the whole process. But I also want to bring up attention to a part of Monte Sereno, which has the most smallest lot I think in the whole of Monte Sereno, which is Dave's Avenue. These lots are often very small. And I like to see that the landscaping is so important for privacy. So it's from my own current issue. It's like landscaping is an afterthought. But for privacy, it can be done if we put in mature landscaping properly to kind of protect the neighbors on both sides of the development. Second, I think this may be a lost cause, is on the setback. 6 feet is really not enough, especially I don't even know whether it's 6 feet wall to wall or is it 6 feet from the overhang of the house. So that must be very clearly set up, and don't know whether it's possible, but I'd like the city council and to kind of look into it like area by area, especially in Dave's Avenue when lots are so small, and to have big houses like more than 3,400 square foot in a lot, which is like 6,000 square foot lot or 8,000 square foot lot. The setback of 6 feet is way too, it's not enough. These are my input to this committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So Jeff, is there anybody else that has raised their hand besides Rowena?
Yes, there's Rupa.
Okay, why don't you go? I assume that's not a council member, so we'll allow them to go first. Is their hand still raised?
Yeah, it looks like the microphone's on. Oh, just turned off. Rupa, can you speak?
Can you guys hear me?
Great, thank you. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Hello?
yes. Rupa, can you hear us? We see your screen is active and not muted.
Oh, she's in the chat. She said she'll log in again.
Okay, so is there anybody else?
Liz Lawler has a hand up.
Okay, so Liz.
Yes. Hi. First of all, I just wanted to say this is a great presentation. I really appreciate all the work that you've put into this. And I know it's going to be challenging to find ways to strengthen our objective standards in a way that can satisfy our subjective design guidelines without being subjective. So I'm fascinated and excited to continue working on this and making that happen. And so I just wanted to say again, thank you. And I know it's challenging and I'm looking forward to the final result.
Great, and just so I'm clear, Liz, are you a council member?
Yes, I am.
Well, not only will you see the final results, but you'll be part of the study session.
Yes, I'm looking
Where we
forward
get
to
to
it.
roll up our sleeves and continue to work.
Exactly. I'm really looking forward to it.
Sure, long time before anything's finalized. So unless there's somebody else, while we wait for Rupa to log in, did you want to say anything, Rowena?
Tom, this is Rupa
Yes.
here. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
Okay. Thank you
Great.
so much for your patience. Really appreciate it. I just wanted to share my experience with the city thus far, wherein the design of any new enhancements or new constructions are made without keeping the immediate neighbors' privacy and concerns in perspective, but they focus too much on what the applicant want, what the construction people are kind of wanting, instead of considering the nearby neighbors' issues and concerns. So the privacy of the neighbors while designing a new building or enhancement is of utmost importance. That is important topic that we have to kind of focus on while we are kind of designing all these new standards. And I just wanted to request you all to kind of keep that as a priority. It could be the windows towards the neighboring property. It's a setback space. It's, it's no brainer that they should not have a 2-story building with a balcony overlooking the next door neighbor. All those things, some of them are really no brainers, but in our city, they really don't care. And I'm really disappointed with the process that I have been personally gone through, and I've been immensely impacted. And I'm suing the city right now. But which way it goes, nobody knows, but that's the pain that I've gone through. And I want to kind of echo the concern that each of our residents who are not the applicants, but the neighbors face in the city. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Tom, for giving the opportunity.
Sure. Thank you, Rupa. That's great because you gave us some ideas, but you also gave us some specific development characteristics that we can look at to try to achieve that goal.
Thank you.
So is there anyone else besides, I think earlier Rowena had her hand up. Is that it, Jeff, that's just left? Is it just Rowena?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So may I share my slides with you?
Sure. I mean, it's okay with me. I think it's technically possible too.
Can you see it now?
No, we might have to wait and give you permission, and then
That's not ours.
oh wait, you know what? I have to stop sharing. I'm sorry. Okay, I stopped sharing, so let's see if you're able to share your screen now. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you
that's
see?
success.
Can you see the slides?
No, we see you.
Oh, you see me. That.
Here we go.
Okay. Good. So these are some slides that Councilmember Lawler and I put together that actually correspond to your document, the design guidelines. So if I may go to the first one. Uh-oh. There it is. So what I wanted to do here is to show you, if you go to your page 4, where we talk about neighborhood compatibility, right? Your neighborhood compatibility has principles on page 4, up in the top, where it says, this section stresses the importance of designing a project which retains the existing character of the neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. What we wanted to do was to add this section here that says, these design standards shall be followed to the, whatever it says, feasible to ensure privacy to the surrounding neighbors. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of the changes that we would like to make. And Councilmember Lawler, if you have anything to add, please just jump in at any point in time.
So, okay, I have some comments, but I'll wait till you're done.
Okay.
I mean, I really appreciate you doing this. This is great.
Okay, the second one says What is compatibility? And I think that's your next page, which is page 5. It says, the neighborhoods in Monte Sereno have defined characters. Neighborhood identity should be maintained by designing a project, blah, blah, blah. What we want to add there is to say the design guidelines should be implemented to the greatest degree feasible where privacy impacts are of concern. All right, that's what we heard from the residents tonight. Number 3A, which is page 6. You talk about the design your home to fit the neighborhood. What we wanted to do here is to add the impacts to privacy will be addressed and resolved during the initial design stage and constraints analysis phase. This should not be just on the mitigation measures. This should not just be mitigation measures or an afterthought, right? So that's for that page. Any questions from the panel here?
Well, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I mean, I
Okay.
think this is really
You're
helpful.
gonna make it at the end, right?
Pardon me?
Are you gonna make it now or at the end?
Which do you want?
It's up to you.
How many slides do you have?
Just 2 more.
Well, let's just do them all. Go ahead.
Okay. This one is page 10 of your document. This talks about site planning considerations. So we want to add here, locate outdoor activity areas adjacent to neighbors' outdoor activity areas rather than in close proximity to their bedrooms. All right. 4B, it says design should be compatible with the natural terrain. That's page 12. We want you to add the maximum allowed height for homes in hillside areas should be 25 feet. The building height shall be measured in compliance with the Monte Sereno zoning ordinance, whatever that is. 4C, the natural features of the land and significant existing vegetation should be preserved. So we want this to be added there. Existing vegetation that protects privacy should not be removed. And this is my last slide. Page 14, it says, buildings shall be designed to minimize bulk, mass, and volume so as not to be predominantly visible from a distance or from surrounding properties. Page 15, eaves and soffits shall be protected on the exposed underside with non-combustible material for fire safety. Number 15, and I'm not going to read probably all of this, but it has minimized, this is what Rupa was saying, minimize second-story windows facing close neighboring properties, orient upper floor windows, decks, and balconies to avoid impacting the privacy of neighbors, incorporate screening measures, limit the size of decks and balconies to 6 feet in depth in areas where privacy is a concern, use landscaping to screen views to your neighbors' living areas most sensitive to privacy, use evergreen trees and shrubs to provide year-round privacy. Existing vegetation that protects privacy should not be removed. Screen and noise control sources such as parking, outdoor activities, and mechanical equipment should be screened. And then number 16 says, minimize the contrast between man-made buildings and the environment. The building's color and materials should complement and blend with the predominant colors of the surrounding natural environment. Number 18, the slope of the main roof shall generally be oriented in the same direction as the natural slope of the terrain. So we didn't have a lot of time to look at this, but initially this is our feedback. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for doing this. I think every one of these ideas you're putting forth are greatly appreciated, and it's great that you've done this. I just want to let you know that you probably won't be able to see this language in the end. We'll take these ideas, but just for instance, we'll go back to page 1. Again, all of these ideas are great, and they give us a good starting point. Are you able to scroll back up to page 1? So,
This one?
oh, I'm sorry, the next one, page 2. So we won't be allowed to say something like, no, the one before that. Greatest extent feasible. Again, that's not objective. Your idea of feasibility and my idea of feasibility are different. It's not to say that this is a bad idea you're giving us. I think it's great, and it points us in the right direction, but it'll now be our job to figure out, how do we make this idea, this bullet point under number 4, objective? What can we do that gives a quantifiable, measurable way for the city staff member behind the counter to really deal with this issue? So I just want to put that out there. These are all great ideas, but you're still not there. We have to find a way to make these objective. Maybe scroll another page or 2. Some of the places where you're getting to it and you're really close is when you start using metrics. The maximum allowed height for homes in hillside areas shall be 25 feet. That's pretty clear, shall be. Now, if your zoning ordinance already says that, and I don't know offhand what it does say, we probably won't create a new objective standard that just copies what you already have in your code. But if we want to put forth a more strenuous development standard than currently exists, we can certainly do that. But all of these ideas, what I'm saying is, they need to be turned into some sort of metric like that can be easily objectified and easily reviewed by a staff member. Basically, all they're doing is checking the box. Is it 25 feet? Yes. What is the slope of the hillside? Oh, it's greater than 12%. So therefore, this standard kicks in. So it all has to come down to something like that. Protects privacy. We have to find a way to objectively define privacy. I think it was Rupa who was getting into talking about, which facades are balconies allowed on. What is the maximum size of a balcony? Maybe it's different if the property is adjacent within 25 feet of the property line, or it's adjacent to another residential property. So all of these are great ideas. I just want to point out that they're not objective yet.
Fair enough. I think you are the subject matter experts, right? And what we're doing here is we're throwing out our ideas, and then you solidify them.
Well, actually, you're the subject matter experts because you live there. So yeah, these are all great ideas, and it's our job. It's on us now to find a way to make these objective standards. And some of them may not be able to, but we'll certainly hear this. We'll hear about that when we get to the study session. And Liz has a comment, I see. Or Liz would like to say something.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just, if Rowena, could you go to the next slide, I think for item 5B1. Yes, this one in particular is very important given increasing density. It would allow us to maintain continuity within our neighborhood and minimize the visual impact of density. How do you suggest, out of curiosity, how do you suggest the language would be to reflect an objective standard?
Is that the one about the colors, Councilmember
Yes.
Lawler?
Yes, minimize the contrast between man-made buildings and the environment. The building's color and materials shall complement and blend with the predominant colors of the surrounding natural environment.
It's not used frequently, but I think we'll be seeing more of it. There are some very technical specifications having to do with the color saturation and brightness
Okay.
that can actually be quantified, like Tom has been talking about.
Oh, good, good.
So something like that could be used to try to address the concern about colors.
Great.
Just from a process perspective, I had a question for council members Lawler and Turner, and for the sake of the public listening in and the consultants working on this project. Are the two council members acting as a subcommittee of the council on this, or are you speaking as individuals?
Both. We're acting as a ad hoc subcommittee and also as residents of Monte Sereno.
Okay, got it. You mentioned that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just tag on to what Jeff said. We might be able to get into something like a building may only have a maximum of 3 colors or 4, or something that's easily verifiable by a staff member. The trim is a certain color. There's a base color. There's another color. The problem with that is, what do you do 2 years from now when the new owner paints the house? And so some of this is great intentions, but you're only going to be able to control it for so long. Same with the materials. We might be able to specify a maximum number of materials that are allowed to be used. But again, that could change too. Somebody could come in and do a renovation, although when they do a renovation, they'd be subjective. They'd have to respond to the standards too. But yeah, these are all great ideas. Some of them more easily objectified than others. And something tells me maybe you only made it partway through the document and you may have more information. I think so long as you get that to us in the next 3 to 4 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, that would be great. It would be very, very helpful. I mean, this is very explicitly stating what at least 2 members of the community who are also council members and on an ad hoc committee think. So it points us in a great direction.
Yeah, so just to be fair here, I mean, we didn't get this document, or at least this meeting notice, until 2 days ago. So we spent pretty much all night last night trying to figure out what we can put into here. And we only made it until page, whatever page this one is, 18.
Well, if you did this in 2 days, imagine what you can do in 2 weeks. But now, again, I think to some degree, and it's great that Jeff asked you to clarify who you are and how we should read these comments. To a degree, we have to weigh this against what we hear from everybody, but this is the most detailed input we've received to date.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comments.
Sure. Thank you for doing this again. Please feel free to email this to, I mean, we're recording the.
Oh, yes. We will email this to you. We just finished it at 5 o'clock today.
Right. Well, the meeting didn't start till 6, so I don't know why you took a 1-hour break. But okay, no, great. This is awesome. Hey, Jeff, has anybody else raised their hand while we've been looking at this information, this material?
Yes, I just noticed Susan has her hand up.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much. I really agree with Rowena and Liz. They are very, very detailed, and you could tell from Rupa, I have actually, I'm currently suffering from poor design next to me. A balcony, the lot size is less than, I believe it's less than 8,000, and the width of the lot is only 52 feet. And the balcony that was approved. So these are design changes that actually submitted and been approved. And the balcony is like almost 100 feet. I think Queen Elizabeth can actually stand there and start waving her hands. And I'm so shocked that the second architecture people who basically did not even come out to say that, to even look at the privacy. Privacy is a very, it's actually quite, clear. Privacy is when your neighbors say, hey, you can look over into my bedrooms and you can look into my backyard. And what do I do? That's clearly an impediment to my privacy. So I think you guys have to think about how to include this into this streamlining on how to be fair. And like Rupa says, that privacy should not just be the city going along with what the applicant wants. And the city has really failed the residents of the neighbors for not listening to them. So I unfortunately, I am a victim of poor city management in this case. So I want to bring up too, and it has to be very clear. When it comes to height, what I learned is the city does not verify the height independently. After the building has been done and built, and when it's about to be approved, then they rely on the applicant site, the applicant surveyor to, on the design. If the surveyor said, yep, the height is less than, is within code, is 25 feet or under. I think there is kind of an independency here. So it should be also looked on, whereby when it comes to enforcing the code, things like privacy and the building height, the city should be able to, or have to, independently verify the height and not rely on the applicant surveyor. So I sincerely hope, I mean, for me, I'm doomed. There's nothing can be done. It's already been, built. The city has really failed me, and I'm not as brave as Rupert to sue the city, but definitely I'm one of those that say that things have to be improved and shaken up. So please take our concerns on privacy, height, especially, as I say, in our area where we have the smallest lot size. And I want to quote someone, as Jeannie, say, how do you have privacy within small lots like us? I find that slap on my face. Privacy can be achieved with good, mature landscaping throughout the lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. So do we have any other raised hands? You're on mute, Jeff.
Sorry, Rupa has her hand up.
Okay.
Tom, Rupa again. I had a quick question though. After all these design guidelines are set in there, we're returning the books, are you guys going to go give any recommendation as to how the site and architecture team has to run the meeting? Because currently we have our city planner who does not have architecture expertise or any design expertise, who's slamming the staff report based on some subjective decision based on prior experience. And then comes our site and architecture council members who are all the way from people like ordinary people like me, from housewives to the lawyers to name it, from different expertise. I mean, if I am on the site and architecture meeting, I will come and my day is already busy. Don't read the documentation, come to the meeting and give subjective decision based on how far the property could be from my house. If it's not impacting me, I wouldn't care who's getting impacted. Based on how my mood swings, I give the approvals. How do we control that? There should be a person who's qualified, who knows the context, who has got the expertise, sitting in the meeting, reviewing the plan, providing the inputs. So right now, our city runs like a wild, wild west. Nobody has the expertise, nobody has the skills. They just wing in the air, and residents like myself and Susan and name another 10 other residents are impacted. And we don't have control because city has the power, they rule over us. How do we control that? Please, Tom, I would really request you to look into that matter and provide some suggestions to the city to hire some expertise during all these council meetings and the site and architecture meeting, and not an ordinary resident like me sitting there and making the decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other hands?
Not at this time, Tom.
Okay. Am I able to share my screen again? I'd like to. Oh, yes, I can. Do you guys see the timeline? Okay, great. So I think we're wrapping up. I think we've addressed anybody who had a hand raised. So just again, where we are here in the summer of 2021, third day of summer, and the fourth day. And so we're going to go away and start digesting all this information. Great input from the two council members, and start to develop something. So right now we have 3 public meetings on the schedule to happen between now and the end of the year. So this process is literally just getting started. There's lots of chances to weigh in. The first being the city council study session after the summer is over and we have something to share. And then we'll take that study session and we'll go back to the drawing board and see if we can address issues in ways that come up at that meeting. And then we'll come back with a more finalized document for continued review by both the Site and Architecture Commission and the council when they will consider the objective standards for adoption. So with that, I'm going to encourage you to.
Tom, we do have Jennifer Kroc has her hand raised and would like to speak.
Jennifer.
Hi, as a former member of the Site and Architecture Commission, I cannot let that comment go unchallenged. We are volunteers dedicated to working for our community, and we don't have mood swings. We're not just taking everything on a whim. I mean, I take offense to that comment. We're not getting paid. We have no ulterior motives. We have no agendas. We are working hard for our city. And I just could not let that comment go unchallenged. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so is my screen still sharing?
Yes.
So a lot of great information here tonight. So I just want to remind you about the website. And I think it was Jennifer who earlier talked about neighbors and community members who might not have known about tonight. Please let them know. A recording of this meeting will be available. The recording of the Site and Architecture meeting, May 12th, I assume is available on the city's website. And we'll continue to collect information that you want to give us as we continue to grapple with these issues and develop a draft that we can take to the council study session after the summer, early fall. So with that, unless Jeannie or Jeff or Aaron or Demir has anything to say, I think we can wrap up.
This is Jeannie Hamilton. Yeah, I would just like to thank the M Group for putting together a great presentation. And again, as we continue to move forward, this whole project will continue to be available to the public on the front page of the city's website with links to the dedicated website. Should the council want us to do more in the area of outreach, I'm sure the next city planner would be more than happy to take that direction, and whatever the cost would be, the city would make that available to make that outreach happen. But again, I want to thank M Group. I'd like to thank all of those who did participate. And again, if you, word of mouth is how a lot of things do get out in this city. So hopefully, as this project gets moving and gains some momentum, more people will have an interest in it. So thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming out.
Everyone.